Hey folks, it's the Red, and in commemoration of the upcoming new Super Mario Bros. 2 and the coin flower, which promises to be one of the most game-breaking items ever. Yeah. So, I decided to put together my first top 10 list of some of the most broken, the most cheap, the most overpowered, the most game-breaking items that I can think of. This can apply to weapons, characters, items, anything goes. So without any further ado, let's get right to it. Donatello from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is definitely the most unbalanced characters in the game. He has everything going for him. He's got the range, he's got the power, he can hit enemies from great distances. He's got it all, leaving his turtle brethrens with short-ranged attacks, lack of power, and just generally can't kill anything quite as effectively. The apparent drawback to this is that he can't hit enemies that are too close to the ground quite as easily as some of the other turtles can, but this is hardly a hindrance if you can play him right. Just look at how quickly he can take out a boss compared to the other turtles. And he can be pretty effective against other bosses, especially this one against Rocksteady, where he can just thrust downward repeatedly until he's dead.
Turtles fight with honor!
More like turtles fight with long, overpowered sticks. Okay, here's one that I'm probably not going to have a lot of people agreeing with me with, but I think the Smash Ball from Super Smash Bros. Brawl is a pretty unbalanced item. It favors way too heavily the players that are currently winning. I mean, it takes a really experienced person to be able to break a shiny ball that's moving all over the stage, and it also takes a really experienced player to be able to dodge it. Either way, it is the lesser players who are going to suffer the most. Some of these final smashes are nearly impossible to dodge. Some of them are impossible to dodge. And some of them are just plain cheap. In some cases, a final smash will mean dying twice. What the heck is up with that? I mean, even the hammer, in all of its cheapness, had its limitations. But with a final smash, the limitations are almost non-existent. You're limited only by your ability to aim. And that only really applies to some of them. I guess the simplest way to explain this is that there's a reason these things are banned in tournaments. But more than anything else, I just hate how a first-place player can just as easily get these things as a last-place player. If you are in first place, you have no reason to be able to get one of these things. I just think that is really unbalanced. I mean, there is a reason you can't get a lightning bolt in Mario Kart if you are in first place. Because you don't need it! I mean, isn't this the reason pity final smashes exist? So that struggling players can possibly make a comeback? Basically, I would feel better about the Smash Ball if the distribution system worked out a little better. First place people should not be able to get this. And I would also want to see some of the final smashes get tweaked a little so that they're a little less cheap. Otherwise, I guess I don't really have too much of a problem with them. Supersonic from Sonic R for the Sega Saturn. Now, I'm only going to cite the Sonic R version because even though you can use Genesis Supersonic to cheese through levels just as easily, you did need all 7 Chaos Emeralds to do that, and by the time you got all those, you've pretty much got the game beat. So the prerequisites keep him off the list. But this one, however, in Sonic R, you can still use in, say, a multiplayer game, and you will absolutely decimate whoever you're playing against, as you can see here. He has ungodly speed going for him, and the only notable drawback is that he has slightly less turning. And that hardly deters from his cheapness, because every character had pretty bad turning, except maybe Amy. Look at this! Knuckles is being lapped right before the finish line, and he is in second place! If that isn't a testament to how broken this character is, I don't know what is. Ah, the Caped Feather from Super Mario World for the Super Nintendo. It has all kinds of useful functions. You can fly, you can spin, you can float, you could do just about anything with it. In fact, with enough practice, you could fly over an entire stage without even giving a second thought to what's on the ground. Hey, even if you screw up the flying and hit an enemy or something, you won't lose your cape or anything. And even if you can't fly over the entire stage, your infinite spinning ability will let you tear through just about any enemy a castle ever throws at you. Indeed, the Caped Feather makes the Fire Flower look pretty pathetic, and in fact, there are several enemies in this game that the fireballs can't even hurt. But the feather sure can tear through them. Oh, and did I mention you could pound the ground? Yeah, the Caped Feather is a pretty reliable item in this game. Maybe too reliable. The Metal Blade from Mega Man 2 for the NES. Now here is a really reliable weapon, if ever I saw one. Not only does the Metal Blade come with the ability to fire in all 8 directions, you can tear through just about any enemy in a few hits. And it uses next to no energy on the energy bar. Look at that, 5 shots per notch. The Metal Blade serves as the weakness weapon for not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 Robot Masters. That was not a glitch. Metal Man can go down in 2 hits with his own weapon. How many Robot Masters have been weak to their own weapon? On top of that, the Metal Blade is also effective against 2 Wily bosses. With such power and range, Metal Blades are a very good reason to go after Metal Man first in Mega Man 2. Psychic Pokemon from Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. My god, how broken was this type back in the first generation. Not only did Psychic Pokemon sport some of the strongest attacks in the game, such as Psychic, they also had top-notch defense going for them. For one thing, they resist Fighting and Psychic-type Pokemon, as well as Ghost-type, who can't even hurt them. But their only weakness in the game was Bug-type, and at the time there were only 3 bug moves: Leech Life, Pin Missile, and Twin Needle, none of which do very much damage. This would go on to make Mewtwo the legendary Pokemon of legendary Pokemon. And then the second generation came along, and with the introduction of Steel and Dark type, the Psychic type had a much-needed nerfing. But before that time, Psychic Pokemon were the envy of everyone. Thank goodness those days are behind us. Mega Man 3 introduces us to Rush Jet, and boy was he pretty useful in this game. It was only in Mega Man 3 where you could use Rush Jet to fly in all 8 directions. And you could use this to your advantage quite well, as you could just fly right through a room with a lot of obstacles that would otherwise be pretty troublesome if you were just going to platform your way through this. On top of this, though, you could just jump repeatedly, and your energy bar will go down very slowly, because it only counts against you if you're standing on Rush. So you could use this to quite easily fly over a really long room with a lot of dangerous obstacles in it. It's a great strategy, by leaps and bounds. And if you still don't believe me about how cheap this is, well, just watch me absolutely cheese this Wily fight. So later installments of Mega Man would have Rush Jet automatically moving forward, and all you could do is go up and down, and shoot, and jump, which by the way would not save you any energy. But even today, Rush Jet still finds its ways of being cheap. Good boy! The Mega Mushroom from New Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo DS. This thing made an easy game even easier. All you do is grab the mushroom and just plow your way right through the stage. Don't even need to give a second thought to what you're hitting. Heck, you can even take out the flagpole at the end with this thing, which I'll admit is pretty humorous. But these things are pretty plentiful throughout the game. In fact, you're given one in the form of a Mega Mushroom house in every world. They don't regenerate until the end of the game, but don't digress. You can still find them at random at the starting dot of a world, and you can also get them out of these floating question blocks. So you'll have plenty of opportunity to bulldoze your way down the stage. On top of being able to trash through an entire stage, you can also use them to one-shot a boss. So yeah, keep this in mind if you're struggling against one of them. Overall, it's a pretty unbalanced item that literally breaks the game. Goodness, another Mario entry? What is it with Mario games and cheap items? Oh well, the P-Wing is pretty dang cheap. Like the Cape Feather, you can use it to fly over the entire stage, but unlike the Cape Feather, this takes absolutely no skill to use. All you have to do is mash the A button until you reach the end of the stage. Now, I'm not mashing the A button here because I want to show it in flight, but yeah, if you were using this thing with any practicality, you would be flying up to the top of the stage and you wouldn't be coming down until you see that black background at the end. And unlike the Mega Mushroom, the P-Wing can take you anywhere that you normally would be able to if you were just regular big. What a broken power-up. And can you believe that they brought this thing back in Super Mario 3D Land? Yes, if you die 10 times in a stage, a special P-Wing block will appear, and if you use it, it will automatically fly you to the end of the stage, right next to the flagpole. Gosh, Mario, are you just getting lazier or what? So here's a quick recap of all the cheap items that we've gone through up to this point before we get to number 1. Number 10 was Donatello. Number 9 was the Smash Ball. Number 8 was Supersonic. Number 7 was the Caped Feather. Number 6 was Metal Blade. Number 5 was Psychic Pokemon. Number 4, Rush Jet. Number 3, Mega Mushroom. And number 2, the P-Wing. And I can only think of one thing cheaper than the P-Wing. The appropriately named Cheese the Chow is coming in at number 1 on my list. Holy God, I have never seen a character this broken in any game. All you do is stand there and press the B button, watch your enemy die. It's really that simple. Combine that with Cream's ability to fly, and no stage is ever going to be a problem for you. Sure, she can't fly as long as Tails can, but it's enough to get you past major obstacles in a stage. As if the ability to destroy any enemy in the game with ease wasn't enough, you can also use Cheese to beat bosses. All you have to do is keep up with them and mash B, making even the most difficult bosses of the game absolute cake. And guess what? She even manages to come back in Sonic Advance 3 with absolutely no nerfing. And in fact, the other characters can get in on the Cheese action if they have Cream as their teammate. They could use the tag action and get their own version of Cheese for a brief period of time. With a powerhouse like Cheese on her side, I really have to wonder how she got captured by Dr. Eggman in Sonic Advance 2. Any theories on this? Because I can't think of one. Well, thank you for joining me for the top 10 cheap things in video games. I will now leave you with this scene of Cream fighting the final boss in Sonic Advance 2. And I shall see you next time.